That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, let's focus a little bit here on what's happening up in Quebec City, because today, I think we have played that clip on the news. Eric Duhem said, you know what, nothing's getting done. By the way, he's not the only one. And maybe we should just call it a day, right? Prorogue the National Assembly and try to figure out what we need to do next, because right now it's all about infighting, it would seem.
Well, it's infighting, but it's also the thousands of temporary workers who were dumb enough to believe Quebec's claims that they actually wanted their skills and their assistance in keeping the economy going with the Programme Expérience Québécois, which, has been blown up. But wait a second, the immigration minister, the redoubtable Jean-François Roberge, who's, frankly, Aaron, I have to admit, he has left his mark on every portfolio he has handled. This guy said, no, we got too many immigrants here. We're going to have a new program. So on top of everything else, and remember, this is a government which for 8 years has been screwing around immigrants big time, changing policies, shredding files, creating new programs. Anyway, he says, everyone starts freaking out. Everyone starts freaking out, and with reason. Because the regions, businesses, everything, they're saying they came here. They're working here. Their kids are going to our schools. They're contributing to the economy. They are actually taxpaying. What is your problem here? And, of course, the problem is guys like Roberge and other bright lights in the CAQ need to throw some red meat to their base, their xenophobic base. So let's go after the immigrants again. But, hey, wait a second. There are two candidates for the leadership of the CAQ. One is Bernard Dranville, the other one is Christine Fréchette. And guess what, buddy? They neither of them want to spike the PEQ, the Programme Expérience Québécois.
Yeah.
And they have their own variations on it. So all of a sudden, here's Roberge basically saying, I'm going to create some transition plans, depending on who gets elected as leader, because there's some nuances between either of their versions of what they want the PEQ to be, although they want the PEQ to be here. They want some people to have want to be grandfathered in and have the required rights. But all that said, because he's Jean-François Roberge, and this is kind of like an echo of the governing style of François Legault. You know what? I'm not going to reinstate the PEQ until after April 12th, which is the date that they choose the leader for the new party. In other words, all these people who are already dangling, wondering, do I have a future here or whatever? No, I'm very sorry. You're going to have to wait another 2 months before we bother to tell you whether or not you have a future in Quebec. I got to tell you, buddy, there are times I wonder. It's like I'm beating my head against the wall. Why would anyone want to come here as an immigrant? Why would between the taxes, the really spotty level of public services, and the fact that they just get screwed around left, right, and center. And I'll be fair, it's not just the CAQ, although they have sort of like pioneered new frontiers of incompetence when it comes to immigration policy. But man, oh man, the pettiness that is really a hallmark of everything the CAQ has ever done really shows through in this. Yeah. And it's going to be
No, I was going to say, to your point, Jim, and it's hard to disagree. I mean, you come here as an immigrant, given what this government, let's just focus on this for the past 7 or 8 years. Here are the rules today. You get here, you try to make a plan and, live your life. And the next thing you know, they pull the rug from under and you got to go home. So why would you want to come here?
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't know. Do the picture bylines over at Québécois who were shrieking about how immigrants were taking over Quebec? Do they even still have jobs with Québécois?
Yeah.
Because what I do know is you have les bons Québécois comme Tremblay and Giroir, you name it, les hommes d'affaires, les propriétaires d'entreprises, they're all saying, we need these people. These people are an essential part of who we are. And the only people who don't get it are the people who are theoretically running the province and running into the ground. But this is what's really, really crazy. And remember, as I've said, and I think we're seeing it, God help us, come to real life. I said, they're gone. The CAQ is going to be finished. But how much damage are they going to do before they finally leave? I think we're going to be finding that out on an almost weekly basis between now and October.
Jim, are you commenting? I'm trying to understand the second headline here. Is this about the Pablo Rodriguez text messages?
Yeah, it's part of it, because the whole thing is, it's so surreal, right? Because as far as I know, Montreal Now is still saying I'm gonna run, I'm gonna get it. And I don't know. I don't think he's gonna get the money. But anyway, but in the meantime, have you had a chance to even just see the reports on the conclusions that this retired judge had? Okay. Basically, folks, if you're just joining us, the judge says this: the only thing I can tell you for sure is that Pablo Rodriguez had absolutely no knowledge of any of this at any time, anywhere. That said, can I tell you that these text messages, these controversial text messages about brownies, about paying $100 for voting, are real? Whether they are, he uses the word in French montage. I think what he was saying, what he meant, I think an apt translation would be an edit that he decided to compress a bunch of text together in this. But all that said, he's saying, with the access I had, which is pretty much the access any of us had, it was to those texts that we saw on the pages of the Journal or on the website of TVA. I can't conclude that it was real. I can't conclude it was false.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this, Aaron, and I'm saying, can you imagine if Pablo Rodriguez, for some reason, had been able to hang on, and he was going to take this, he was going to bet it all on this report? Can you imagine if this report came out and it's like, okay, you had no knowledge of it.
Yeah, nothing happened.
I can't tell you what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me here? And I'm not suggesting any bad faith on the part of the judge who did this, but it's just so crazy that he comes up and says, I looked at the stuff that everyone else saw. You know what? I don't know. I really don't know. Oh yeah, and answer that guy who actually acknowledged that some of his employees were making contributions on his behalf to various political parties. Well, that's under investigation by UPAC, so I'm not going to talk about that. So you're going like, what's the point of this? And I mean, the only guy right now, I mean, I guess it's good news for Pablo Rodriguez. It's probably better news for Jean Mennie, because there is so much hole in this donut that by the time he is acclaimed leader of the Quebec Liberal Party this Saturday, everyone I think will have moved on. I don't think there's going to be any blockbuster, thunderbolt kind of revelations out of this report. And the only thing is, even as I say this to you, Aaron, it just occurred to me, my gosh, Jean Mennie will be the second leader of the Quebec Liberal Party to have been acclaimed. It's like, that's kind of bizarre.
Is it? Well, I'm just wondering here. So imagine, as you said, Jimmy, you're Pablo Rodriguez, and the judge comes out with his statement and says, you know what, after everything I've looked at, I can't really tell if these are not real or not, or fabricated.
Right, I don't know.
I don't know. And now you're starting to think, okay, I'm not sure if that's vindication or not, but if it's not, then the next question has to be, okay, who did this? Where'd they come from? Because clearly there's more to this.
Exactly. But the other thing is, UPAC is not just investigating this one particular individual businessman. UPAC is investigating the whole thing. UPAC has interviewed Myra Rizky, whose dismissal of her chief of staff, who's a colleague of Pablo Rodriguez, sparked this entire chain of events. I mean, that is still going on. But what I think right now is when we look at this particular report, as you said, I think a lot of people will say, we don't know what happened. But much in the same way as you can say, Pablo Rodriguez had no knowledge of the Brownies plan. Well, if he had no knowledge of it, I'm guessing nobody else had any knowledge of it either, except perhaps the people who were involved in it. Who are they? We don't know. But I think for the time being, this is not going to be an obstacle for Jean Mennie to sort of like come and take the reins of power with the Quebec Liberal Party. All that said, it's clear the party remains divided. It's clear that, and especially, I mean, I used to think it was just the PEQ did this kind of stuff, but even the Liberals now, provincial Liberals, they have like long memories, man. And it's like, you know what? I don't know. I guess good luck to him. But if I was Jean Mennie, I would spend as much time looking towards the future for Quebec and also spend as much time looking over my shoulder.
Yeah, no question. All right, Jim, I want to ask you what I started the show with today. I had Fatty Daguerre on yesterday. We know the police, they'll let us know that crime rates are down. I think the number was 51%. Homicides now, we are the safest place, according to those numbers, anywhere in North America per capita. But then he also acknowledged, and I thought this was interesting, right? It's great to tout those good numbers. And he said, you know what, but I get it. There are still people here who feel unsafe, insecure, whatever. And I asked listeners, Do you feel that way? Because the numbers tell us Montreal is as safe as it gets. And I got calls from people saying, no, I don't feel safe. And saying, I'm out in Anjou, I'm in Park X. Here's what's really going on. What do you think?
You and I have discussed this long before there was any kind of press conference by the cops. It doesn't matter if the numbers say crime is down. If the house next door to you got firebombed, guess what? You don't feel safe. If the cars 2 doors down got set on fire, you don't feel safe. If another place at the bar at the corner had a few rounds of gunfire put through its window, you don't feel safe. But on top of that, I mean, that is simply it's a personal thing, and you're not going to be able to change that. One thing I'm sorry to say has not been getting enough attention as far as I'm concerned during that press conference. Mr. Daguerre talked at great length about the issue of homelessness in this city and how the cops need more extensive help, whether it's from the city, whether it's from the healthcare department, because they are the front line. And trust me, I would respectfully submit that a lot of our callers, if they're feeling a bit less safe, it's probably because if they're in the metro or walking down the street, if they see somebody who's suffering from addiction or mental health problems and they feel threatened by that, that's not helping their feeling of security either. But the fact is, as Mr. Daguerre pointed out, if it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday and we got a call for a person in crisis, guess who's answering that call? It's not going to be a social worker, and it's not going to be a city worker. It's going to be a cop.
And we'll leave it at that. I'm going to come back to this question in a second. Jim, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.